Hello, everyone. My name is Precious Jones, and this is my podcast. In my podcast, I'm going to be speaking about the dangers of mediated communication. I'm doing this podcast because I feel very closely to this topic, and I feel as though this is something that does need to be recognized, and I am excited to introduce and talk to you about my research project. If you see me looking at my computer, I'm going to be looking at it because I am going to be citing sources as I speak, and I will also copy a list of the references at the end of this, so that way if anybody wants to go by and check and read over, then feel free to do so as well. Okay, so let's dive right in. So the topic of my research project is how mediated communication has contributed to depression, anxiety, and the psychosocial and psychological fears amongst adolescents. Before I get into the nitty gritty and dive into mediated communication, I do want to speak about the importance of mediated communication and how mediated communication has honestly helped us as a society and has helped us advance. Now, when I talk about mediated communication, I am speaking about social media as far as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, you name it, as well as texting and emailing. Anything that isn't face-to-face communication is mediated communication. Okay, so when we think about the positive aspects of mediated communication, we think about, oh my gosh, working from home, Zoom meetings, team meetings. We think about when we're out of town and we're traveling and we still have to talk to our team and we still want to keep in touch with our associates and maintain that professional relationship. All of those aspects are important. When we think about telehealth therapy, how we could do virtual therapy appointments so that way that clinicians are able to speak with their clients if they're not able to come into the office. Even thinking about personal usage, we all have family members or loved ones, close friends who live far away from us, and we're not able to, drive and go see them for 20 minutes after we get off of work. So instead, we pick up the phone, we call them, or we text them throughout the day, or we talk to them through social media. We laugh and we like pictures, and we talk about how this video reminded you of me and how, this reminded you of them, and, all those things. So mediated communication is very positive, and it has definitely been something that has enriched our society in a numerous amount of ways. And this has caused us to live in an instant gratification society. So when I speak of instant gratification, I speak of things at our fingertips. Like I'm hungry and I'm going to DoorDash because I don't feel like driving. Or now that I watch TV, I can even say it from personal experience. We don't even like commercials anymore, right? Because we're able to go on Netflix and we can watch a 40-minute episode with no commercials. So in a lot of ways, it has caused us to become a little spoiled and to want things quickly because that's how our society has moved. However, though that can be a positive, we have to learn how to balance wanting that instant gratification. We have to understand that there are positives to face-to-face communication and emotionally connecting, and understand how that is beneficial to not only our development psychologically, but our development health-wise, physically, mentally, everything. So I'm going to dive right into this, okay? So when I talk about my first sub issue, which is going to be what I'm speaking about in this video. So this video is going to strictly talk about how mediated communication has allowed adolescents to struggle with emotional connections and gaining social support. So when I speak about emotional connections, I'll talk about being able to emotionally, I won't just use the word connect, let me use a different word. Understanding how to emotionally thrive in situations. So when we say thrive, we're talking about family, peers, friends, personal relationships. So I believe that the foundation when it comes to connecting emotionally starts in the home. So when we think about what it means to say it starts in the home, we think about family activities, things such as game nights, such as, hey, it's Black History Month. Hey guys, let's do a Black History project. Let's talk about what this project means to me. Things such as eating family dinner together. And I can testify to this because when I was younger, I wasn't allowed to have my phone at the dinner table. Honestly, I'm still very uncomfortable doing it because it's built in me now. So all of those things allows you to understand what it means to sit down with your family, have a conversation, have a talk. If something happened at school that day, hey, mom, dad, this happened at school. Understanding how talking to your family about what's going on in your life actually does help you develop psychologically, because it gives you that psychological safety, and it helps you understand that this is what emotional connecting really means, if that makes sense. It's not just, hey, you text me that you feel like this, I text you and say, hey, I hope you feel better. No, but understanding how to say, look, I can express this to you, and this is how we connect these two things, and it reaches us to understand how to gain social support. So we talk about social support, that's more broad, right? We can talk about not just family, but peers, friends, relationships, professional relationships, understanding how to properly reach out and speak and ask for what I need. Whether that's, hey, at work, I've been doing this work, I've been, coming to work on time, I've been filling in, I've been doing 2-3 jobs, I've been giving you my all. How do I ask for this raise? How do I talk to my manager in a professional way, speaking about what I deserve? How do I talk to a peer or a friend about something that bothers me without it, let's say, blowing up? How do I come to my mother and father and say, hey, mom, dad, I don't appreciate this that you've done. However, let's talk about different ways that you can do this. Those all under an umbrella of the foundation of what you learn in the home. So when you learn the foundation of understanding how to ask for that support and how to seek that, then honestly, it gives you more so of a broader sense of social support, but it also kind of narrows it down with you learning how I do ask for this social support, and how I do understand that, hey, this isn't something I have to worry about how to do. This is something that I can do because it's been embedded in me. Okay, so let's talk about that, and I'm going to first dive into a few examples. So I have an article up, and it's the title of the article is The Digital Self, How Social Media Serves as a Setting That Shapes Youth's Emotional Experiences. So we talk about emotional experiences. And when we speak about emotional experiences, we talk about understanding how the platform of a text or a platform of an email or even a social media DM, direct message, how that often gives us a false sense of intimacy. I think this is very important because when we think about intimacy, oftentimes it has been tied to what we receive in an email, how a person is responding to us in a text, how this person has liked my picture, or if they didn't respond to my picture today. That false sense of intimacy has honestly led to things that has caused an open discussion. So when we think about how oftentimes children are struggling with understanding that intimacy is not a sexual thing. Intimacy is closeness. Intimacy is being able to connect. Intimacy is bonding. So when we say, I have intimacy with my family, understanding when you start that foundation at home, saying, hey, this is going on. Hey, I'm your mother. I'm your father. Talk to me. I care. I care about what went on in school today, or I care about what I'm saying, how that's making you feel about yourself, or I care about how that comment is drilling in your head and how that's making you feel. These are things that children aren't able to get from the internet. The internet oftentimes gives us a false sense of what that intimacy means. So when we think about intimacy on the internet, we think about seeing two people hug or seeing people kiss, and we think about, hey, I'm this age now. Why hasn't this happened to me? Why haven't I experienced this? Maybe I'm not worthy of that intimacy. Maybe I don't deserve that intimacy, or maybe I don't know how to demonstrate that intimacy. But when we talk about the true meaning of intimacy and what it means to feel close and what it means to understand different paradoxes of developing and the different things that it takes in order for us to have a true healthy sexualization, then we can further break down what that truly means. So I'm going to give another example. So let's talk about peers. Oftentimes, when we think about peers and we think about emotionally connecting, those two things don't honestly go into the same sentence. Now I'll even use, for example, even with me attending Clayton State. I love Clayton State, by the way. However, when we go to class now, we go into class, we sit down, we may get on our phones, we wait for the teacher to teach. If the teacher is asking us to speak, oftentimes we don't speak. We sit there and we just, listen, we take notes, we're being good students, but we're not communicating. We're not understanding how to actually talk and communicate with each other. We're not understanding how to build that emotional connection with each other and how to say, hey, if I build this connection with this person, then maybe I'll have a better chance of getting this better grade in this class. Maybe they know something I didn't know. All those different things that come from just understanding how to gain and reach for that social support. So for example, when we think about the punctuation of a situation, so I'm going to dive into that. So when we think about the punctuation of anything, of a discussion, of an argument, a punctuation is your way of saying something. So I'm having a conversation with someone. We say the same sentence. The way I say that sentence is not going to be the same way that that person interprets that sentence. You understand? So when we think about how we're taught to know how to diffuse the punctuation, how to understand the punctuation amongst our peers, we understand how it is important to listen rather than hear. Or it's also important to have a strong sense of imagination, because all of those things helps us to understand that even though we're all going to say different things, everything we're saying could mean the same thing, or it can mean something totally different. But understanding how to truly have a conversation and talk about that, and understanding, hey, I don't understand this. Can you explain that to me? Hey, can you elaborate on this? Or, hey, explain that again, because I didn't quite hear you. I want to actually listen to you. I don't want to just respond to you. So those are all the things that helps us to learn how to develop and helps us learn how to get ahead. Even when we're talking about friendships and we're talking about just talking to people, that's honestly one thing that is something that as a society period has to come together. It has to be something that we all work on, because there's so many things that could be avoided and so many things that could be better if we understood how to apply using and understanding how the punctuation of an argument, of a sentence, of a conversation can mean so many different ways. But that should not stop an emotional connection from happening or support from being gained. Okay, so there are always pros to everything. There are always things that allow us to say, hey, even though I understand these different things, there are still gonna be times where we're not understanding our peers, and we're not understanding friends, and we're not understanding how we can be in a situation but we're not really feeling close with people. And and we're trying to understand, hey, just because I understand how to communicate doesn't mean that my friends are going to understand, or these people that I want to be friends with are going to understand how to communicate. Okay, so I'm just looking for an article because I do want to cite it and I do want to talk about it. So the next thing I'm going to dive into are the cons. So I know I've said a lot of great things about why face-to-face communication is amazing and why it is something that does not need to be controversial. It's something that does need to be enforced more. However, I'm going to talk about the cons that come with it. It's important to not indulge yourself in mediated communication because you understand how to connect and be well-rounded. However, once you do learn how to emotionally dive into those connections, and you do learn how to speak up for yourself and how to, ask for what you want, friendships can be controversial. I use myself for example. When you do understand how to say, hey, in a friendship, I want to be listened to and not just heard. If I'm feeling away, I want to know that this person will acknowledge the punctuation of that sentence. I want to know that I can come to them for that gain support, and that they'll also come to me, and that more importantly, they'll understand how to do it, and I won't have to explain it. That is false. That is absolutely a false sense of reality. The truth of the matter is, no one will have this fully under control. If that's the case, we wouldn't need any help. If that's the case, there would be no reason to know how to diffuse an argument and understand how to take communication and how to listen and communicate. So because of that, we have to understand that it's important that we not only acknowledge that, but we put ourselves in an environment or put ourselves in a situation to do that. So when I speak of putting ourselves in a situation, for example, if you state that, let's say you go to college and you do want to get more involved. You say, hey, I've been transitioning and I want to be around people who like what I like. I want to be around people who are just as much into my major as I am. solution? Let's join a club. Why don't we go to student center? Let's see what's available. If we see the events, everybody knows all the emails that we get, all the events going on campus. Why don't I go to one? It's a Saturday. I'm at home watching TV. Pause that TV show. Go to the event. There are different ways that we can spread this communication, and just doing that alone, we don't understand the emotional connections that we will make. We don't understand how that emotional connection will honestly impact someone else, and how that honestly is what is crucial for our psychological development, because it's not that we just know what we're doing and we just know how to do it, but we also understand that doing this allows us to spread it onto other people, and it allows the chain to just keep going. So everything I said it, I'm reading this article. It is stated Adolescents, daily face-to-face computer-mediated communication associations with autonomy and closeness to parents and friends. So everything I said, I will also, like I said, I will post this article as well. But it's referred to this article talking about, like I just stated, understanding that closeness to parents and friends is not just connected through associating, hey, I know I don't just need to do mediated communication, but being active with it and understanding how to present it. And understanding what environments I need to go into so that way I can present this emotional communication. So I want to dive a little deeper. So I know that we're talking about communication, right? We're talking about speaking. We're talking about being face-to-face. However, one thing that I have learned that has honestly helped me, and it has allowed me to truly understand that things aren't just one and done with communication, but it's understanding the importance of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is honestly one of the greatest things that I could have ever learned about, because it's not just understanding how to maintain your emotions, which is honestly something we all need to do. We all need to learn how to maintain our emotions. But it digs deeper into recognizing multidimensional relationships and understanding how to prioritize your own emotions as well as someone else's. So I'm going to give a very clear example of that, of how I had to use that in my professional world. So a couple years ago, I was working at Publix, and I had a manager, and during this time, our attrition rates were very high, and it wasn't at a place where it needed to be. However, the way I worked, I had very great work ethic. The store manager was very much recognizing that, and he wanted me to be over a club called AVS, and AVS means Associate Voice Survey. So it's when the head of each department, they all come together, and you all talk about the ways to better your department, whether it be criticism for your manager or associates, whatever it is up under the sun. You talk about it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This was very new to me because I didn't understand why emotional intelligence was tied so deeply into this. I didn't want to be the person that comes to work and, hey, now I said this to my manager. How would he feel? How would he look at me now? Because I had to correct him in front of his boss. There were so many things that tied into this. However, it made me become so thankful for the different ways we had to communicate in my home, because I understood how to speak to someone who was older than me in a way that made it where I was able to elaborate what I was saying. I was able to quickly converse and talk about what it was that I was trying to, convey. So I had to tell my manager about the different things that he needed to work on in front of his manager, which was a store manager. And it was a lot for me. It was something that I definitely struggled with. However, I am glad that I endured that experience, because it helped me to understand that even if I'm not trying to get a close relationship out of this situation, it taught me that learning how to do that did honestly help the department as a whole. The department I was in, it started to grow. We started to see those results because he understood where I was coming from. And it wasn't a thing where I had to say, hey, this guy's older than me, I can't talk to him about this. He's going to look at me away. He's going to feel his way about me. No, I was able to truly and honestly convey what I needed to say in a way that was still valid and concerning, where I was being able to consider his emotions as well as my emotions. But because I understood that emotional intelligence and how it played into that conversation we needed to have. I was able to talk to him in a manner that was organized. I was able to tell him exactly how I felt as well as how others were feeling. I was able to be discreet without self-disclosing too much information. And throughout that process, it honestly worked out better for my relationship with my manager as well as the way that he ran the department as a whole. So I want to tie this back to social support. So all of those things tie back to our social support. So if I needed something, I was able to go to my manager because he understood that I knew how to come to him in the way that exemplified my emotional intelligence. Because we were able to make that connection professionally, it was able to help not only me, but everyone as a whole. So understanding how to communicate and how to convey my thoughts in a clear and concise way is honestly something that has just been entirely beneficial. And I feel like that's honestly a really great example because it really exemplifies what emotional intelligence means and how it can and should be implemented not only in your personal life, but professional life as well. So I'm also going to cite this article because emotional intelligence and different things of modeling and measuring competence comes from this article, and it's titled Preliminary Development of a Model and Measure of Computer-Mediated Communication Competence. So it talks about the competence and special attention that needs to be paid in formatting, developing positive and personal relationships. So like I said, that is very important when we think about implementing these different things into our professional and personal relationships. So this was my podcast today, and I hope that you all enjoyed it. I know that I was all over the place. I tried to keep it together and tried to be really organized with it. However, I feel very passionate about this, and I do believe that this is something that if we all work together and we understand how to implement this, like I stated, in the house, creating that foundation in the household, then it is something that will expand out, and it is something that will allow it to not only reach our family members, but reach our friends, our professional co-workers, and it will allow us to do better at home, not only at home, but also it will teach us how to gain that social support outside of the home, because as we know, we don't stay at home forever, and we're going to be able to need to talk to co-workers, and oftentimes we see co-workers more than we see our own families, depending on the jobs we work or how demanding the jobs are. So it is especially important that we understand how to include these social cues and be self-aware and social awareness and all these different things that we need to implement into how we communicate on the day-to-day basis. So this has been my podcast, and I'm very thankful that you guys have watched it. And if you have any questions, I'll be here to answer. All right, well, bye. Thank you so much. And I will be back, and I will have another sub issue that I'll be conversing, I believe, on November 7th. So see you there.